am now here with Matt Rollens. He is the founder and CEO of Dragon Glassware. And I'm excited about today's show because we're going to be talking to a young guy who's built a business that has grown incredibly fast, despite COVID, despite any other economic slowdowns that a lot of people are facing. Matt and Dragonware are flying. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to not only sharing your story, but helping our audience to understand how they might approach building their own online business, their own e-commerce business. A lot of us think about, when we think about retail, we still think brick and mortar at some level, with complementing with online. You basically decided, I am going to go into this business and from the beginning, focus on the e-commerce aspect. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, no, I built the business with the mindset exactly of being an e-commerce play. I think there's so much potential, so much opportunity, obviously online. And especially now, I started the business in 2017. Here we are in 2020, and it's crazy how much things have changed just in the last couple of years. And especially now with COVID, how most businesses, I think, are trying to transition online. And in a way, it was timely that we're more of an online play to begin with. So there wasn't as much of a transition for us.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Okay, so there's people out there. I'm going to put myself in the mindset of where you were prior to 2017. Let's take, because I think there's a lot of people that, because you didn't own your own business prior to that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, no, I was come from a marketing advertising background. I worked in a couple of ad agencies doing marketing for other companies. And I always knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, have my own business. It was really fun to do all these, cool campaigns for other people's companies. But I was like, man, I really want to have my own. I really want to do my own thing. So yeah, I mean, that was the genesis of why I became an entrepreneur. Was it really inspired me to, get out there and do my own thing.
Well, let's talk about that. How important is it? So you're starting this online business. You had the knowledge of marketing, let's call that in a broader sense, but specifically
Right.
digital marketing. And did you start by saying, look, I know digital marketing, I know advertising. Now I got to find a product, or was it sort of the other way around?
Actually, probably the former. Yeah, I knew, like you said, I knew marketing, I knew advertising, I knew branding, I knew how to start a company that way. But I needed a product, and it was one of the things where I was looking at different things that I could do, and I was always kind of interested in doing home and kitchen just because it's so ubiquitous. So many people, everybody needs something for their kitchen. And it started with I had this tea infuser bottle from another company that I bought on Amazon. And I was noticing, man, I can make some massive changes to this to make it better, to make it more usable. And
What kind of bottle? What kind of bottle was it?
It was the tea infuser bottle. So it's a glass bottle with you basically put loose leaf tea inside of it.
Oh, okay.
To brew tea. And it was kind of that invention that got me inspired to be, wow, I could really improve this and market it and sell it. And that was the first product that we launched. And now we have all kinds of products and all types of different types of beverages and things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to expand on your product line in a second, but taking back to that moment, right, guys, I think I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who aspire to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of people think, okay, well, I'll do something online. It's pretty common.
Right.
But you had the background. If you're advising somebody that's getting started, is this the type of thing that you can learn without going to work for an agency? How many years do you need to spend in an agency to gather this kind of knowledge? Or can you take some classes?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Because I actually get asked that a lot. It definitely helps to have a little bit of a background, maybe, or at least a business background. I graduated from Sac State in 2010 with a marketing degree, so that actually helped a lot. I would say, if anything, for school, I think accounting was probably the most important education I received. But in terms of selling specifically on Amazon, there's so much free content out there, like on YouTube or even on Facebook. I'm in all these Facebook groups and people are sharing stuff, and you can really learn from the ground up for free online how to sell online. I think that's, in a way, that's the easy part. The hard part, I would say, is finding a good product, and having a good story and having good products that resonate with customers, and something that's quality and all that. But yeah, I think absolutely you can teach yourself. I've seen it before. I've seen all types of people start these businesses, not necessarily with any background in business, and they're successful, and you can do it.
So you're doing a lion's share of your business on Amazon. There are other people that are doing digital marketing type products or consumer type of products, and they're using YouTube, they're using Facebook ads. How did you arrive at the decision to go Amazon?
Yeah, well, Amazon makes it so easy. For number one, they have this program called FBA. It's fulfilled by Amazon, and most people don't realize that Amazon, when you buy something on Amazon, there's a more than 50% chance it's from a third-party seller. It's not Amazon directly. And the FBA program basically allows you to send in your inventory, your products, to Amazon fulfillment centers directly. And they handle all of the logistics, everything, the customer service. Although I will say we do more customer service now, but it's very turnkey. It's very simple. You can run it out of your garage, run it out of your bedroom. And you don't need to have this huge infrastructure in place to get started. There's, I think, the traditional e-commerce, having your own website and all that is definitely very important, but it's a lot harder, a lot more barriers to entry. You have to pay for your own traffic. You have to pay for a lot more of the placement and things like on Google Ads and all that. Whereas, Amazon, they have, hundreds of millions of customers that just come to the site regularly, and they're paying for that. And you're kind of riding their wave, so to speak, and getting that traffic.
So they're using Amazon almost as a search engine. Hey, I want to get some cool, you sell, we'll get into your product here in a minute, but you sell, very cool little espresso cups and super cool. I'd say it's all super cool, but it's like, there is this, I'm holding a beer glass that it almost looks like a beer bottle turned upside down, like a bottle within a bottle, or within a glass, right, if you will. So your products are unique and distinctive. So I'm kind of walking myself through this experience of using Amazon. So people are searching for a beer glass or a tumbler, wine glass, something like that. And they're just kind of maybe thumbing around looking for gift type items on Amazon, using it like a search engine, if you will.
That's right.
And then they see it on yours and like, oh, buy now, right? And then that's how you get is that how you get your, I guess, your initial customer?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Amazon is primarily keyword driven. So you type in beer glass, into the search bar on Amazon, and my products have just as big of a chance to show up as other huge brands. And that's the case with a lot of really competitive categories like supplements and electronics. If you were selling, I don't know, like a USB cord or something, you might show up right next to Samsung, even though you're a 2-person company or something against this multi-billion-dollar company. And that's what makes it so cool is, you can list products on there and share real estate with these other huge brands. And, customers are willing to check out, new undiscovered brands too. I really firmly believe is if you have a quality product and you deliver an exceptional customer experience all the way through, you can be successful selling anything really on Amazon.
So as part of this decision, you're going to sell on Amazon versus try to drive, I guess, SEO to your own website or use one of the other channels. So you chose Amazon, and then, a lot of people are selling Amazon, are selling other people's stuff on Amazon. You chose to create your own product line, your own brand, and really have something that's differentiated versus selling something that's more of a Me Too type of product, or really even selling somebody else's brand, like buying it from distribution and just remarketing, let's call it some other brand of product. What goes into that choice?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think 5 years ago or more, you could do kind of a white label product where it would be like a Me Too product or something that's already been done. Just slap your label on it or whatever and list it against all the other hundreds of people that are selling the exact same product. Amazon has definitely become more competitive. Customers are more picky, and Amazon itself is more brand centric now. They don't want fly by night people that are just listing products that, there's already 1,000 of them just in different colors or something. They're looking for unique stuff. They're looking for products that are private label. That's kind of what we refer to that business model as is it's private labeling. And it's just creating your own products, branding them, putting them in your own packaging. And I think that's just so much more successful now. I think it'd be very, very difficult to launch products on Amazon that are Me Too products or are just copycats of other things. You really need to differentiate yourself. But if you do, I mean, the rewards are limitless. There's, the success is limitless on there. And Amazon is definitely rewarding people for doing that as well.
Are there certain types of products whereas you're trying to decide, look, I've got to you want to stuff in the kitchen. A lot of people might be thinking about something that has a high profit margin or, other things besides, going into the kitchen space or things that somebody might use in and around their kitchen. Other thoughts that went into your product development in terms of what product to choose?
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that a lot too. I think a good example of something that's kind of a low barrier to entry, but has a lot of competition are things like phone cases, for like the new iPhone or something. Yeah, those are great because they're very profitable. You can import them for, I don't know, $1 and sell them for 10. The problem is everybody else knows that too. So, and it's easy to get those in. They're lightweight, they're small. You can airship them in from China or wherever and get them listed. I think there's the most opportunity, at least on Amazon, is in products that's hard, that nobody else wants to do. So, for us, we have glass products. So they're big and heavy, relatively. They're bulky and they're fragile. So, there's a lot of pain points importing them and selling them and handling all the customer issues that might arise. And I think that turns off a lot of sellers, at least a lot of people that don't want to, they're trying to get rich quick. It's not a get rich quick scheme. And I see that a lot too. When you might type in Amazon FBA selling on Amazon, you might see a lot of these get rich quick kind of scheme, courses and things that people are selling, but it's really not. I mean, it's an actual business you're building and you have to treat it like one.
Well, don't you feel like, in any business, right? I'm dealing with a number of businesses myself as an investor, and I talk to a lot of people, and it feels like at the beginning, somewhat you think you got this surefire thing. It's got, it checks all the boxes. Invariably, it doesn't work as well as you expect it to. And a lot of businesses go out of business in the first 5 years. Yours worked. Yours has worked. Was there a period of time at the beginning where it wasn't working and your assumptions were wrong, and you had to pivot or change, or has it really just kind of came really smoothly?
Well, it's I think for us, and I think for a lot of other Amazon brands or brands that sell on Amazon, there's always going to be products that don't work. I think that's the key. So, we've launched lots of products. Some just didn't sell. Some were not that popular for whatever reason. And that's what's so great about Amazon too, is, you almost have like a free focus group. You list products, promote them, and if they're just not going to move, they're not going to move for whatever reason. And so it's easy to cut your losses and just move on to the next thing. So I think a good strategy there is to just constantly put out new stuff, put out new products, listen to the customers, and see what they say. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, really there's, hasn't been any, I would say, huge setbacks. We've had a couple, home runs products, like the beer glass, the diamond glass. We've had a couple base hit products and a couple, if you want to use like the baseball analogy, and a couple strikeouts. And I think the important thing is just to persevere and keep going and keep trying new things. Like I said before, I really believe if you have something that's quality and unique and different, and you really support it, and you have strong messaging, it'll work. It'll do well.
So what percentage of, okay, so thinking about that, a lot of people are, okay, so I can picture somebody, hey, I got a job. I'm working for an advertising agency. I've got something rocking that I'm happy with, or a marketing company. Somebody else might
Mhm.
work for the government agency. Who knows? Whatever they're doing, they've got this familiarity with, and this ability to take some risk, maybe some amount of capital saved up to get in the game, if you will. So you think
Right.
about this, like how many strikeouts can a person absorb, and without running themselves off the cliff? How much money do you need to get in the game, knowing that, hey, you might have some strikeouts right at the beginning? Any
Yeah.
thoughts on, like do I need 100 grand? Do I need 5 grand?
Yeah, I know people like to ask that a lot about how much money. And I think like you might find things online where like you can get started with $5,000. I just don't think that's feasible. I think really, you want to aim to have 20 to probably 20 to $100,000 to start. I think 25, 50,000 is a great starting place. Just because, especially if you're going to be importing from overseas, you need that economies of scales, when you're importing and you're bringing stuff in over a container versus sending it, air cargo, which is a lot more expensive. And it does allow you that chance to maybe launch 3 or 4 products, and assume that one is not going to fly. So you have to assume, the other 3 are going to carry the one that maybe breaks even, or even a loss, at the end of the day. So yeah, I know that's such a hard thing to put a hard number on, but I really believe that's, we're talking mid 5 figures, I
Okay.
would say.
So
Yeah,
you start with 50 grand, you start with 100
yeah,
grand, and then expect some failures, and expect to have to grind through some products that just don't make it. Where does that 50 to 100 grand, where does it go? Does it go predominantly in inventory? Did you put it into marketing expense? How do you
yeah.
allocate those resources?
Yeah, for me, it was I invested the majority of it in inventory because I always looked at it as kind of a way to hedge in case, like you're right. I didn't know how products were going to do. I didn't know if we were going to be successful or not. So I always figured, well, worst case scenario, we can liquidate and and break even and get my capital back. So versus things that are, like marketing and things like that, or photography, all these other important things, but in the beginning maybe not as much, because there are sunk costs at that point. But things like inventory, I feel like, it's a great investment, especially if you're selling things that aren't perishable or aren't seasonal necessarily. If you have Christmas products and they don't sell in Christmas, and you're sitting there in July on 100,000 in inventory, that might be painful. But yeah, I would recommend, yeah, you should put most of it in inventory, just for that purpose alone, especially when you're not sure about how you're going to do.
It's interesting when you say perishable, because I invested into an online company that was a consumer brand, but it was electronics. And you think, well, it's not perishable, it's not food, but electronics can be, new technology kills last year's models and so on.
Right.
So really, even tech products end up becoming perishable pretty quick.
Right. Yeah. No. Like, yeah, things that can become obsolete, like phone cases, like the phone case example. I've seen that before. People will maybe they'll spend $10,000 on importing the newest iPhone's phone cases, and they only sell through half, and then they're not profitable yet. And then the new iPhone comes out, and nobody wants that anymore. And so, yeah, I think there's things like that to consider. It's all risk tolerance in a way. I like to look at it as an analogy, kind of like a stock portfolio. If you have your company and you have a line of products, you kind of want to look at them like stocks. Like, oh, okay, well, here's got some winners here, they're great. Got some others that are not doing so well, so we'll trim those. And kind of allocate your capital that way. I think that's kind of a healthy way to look at it when you have more than one product. And I think these are all things I've learned along the way. I wish I would have known this a couple of years ago, because I think that's a great way to kind of look at starting an online business, is treating it almost like stocks, in a way, and then investing. You're investing to get return on capital.
All right. So when do you know to go all in? There's a point in time when you leave your job. All right. All of a sudden, you know what? And I don't know if this is before you start the business, as you start the business, after it gets profitable enough to take a little money out of the company.
Mm-hmm.
How and when do you decide to to go, I would call, when I say all in, not to have a job anymore, is a kind of a nice start from in terms of all in.
Yeah, that's a great question too. I mean, I've heard all kinds of different things from, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would say, when you can supplement your income, your current income enough with your, your online e-commerce business, I think that might be a good chance, a good time to do it. Or at least when you have some savings, I've heard things like, have 24 months in reserve just in case it falls through. But I know a lot of people that also, they work full time. They keep their full time job, and they love working with their, there's people that have, they're not really into e-commerce at all or online retail or anything. And they do this as kind of a side hustle, and they might have, one or two products that brings in, 100,000 in revenue a year or something. And that's fantastic. It pays their rent or their mortgage, and they're happy with that. And they can continue doing what they love. There's people that are teachers and things like that. They don't want to quit being a teacher. But they have one great idea for a product, and they can, have it on the side, work on it on nights and weekends. And I think that's, it really just depends on, your risk tolerance and what you're trying to get out of it.
One of my good buddies, these guys been on the show a few times, and occasionally he reminds me of his mantra, and he says, passion is not part-time. And I always think about that when I think about people doing the side hustle. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Everybody's got their own risk tolerance, their own, life that they want to lead. There is no right or wrong way. However, this guy's name is Tim Berry. He owns Berry Lumber. Started off as Burco Redwood. They're a highly successful company here in the region. And passion is not part-time. So thinking about that, for you, what did you do in terms of keeping the other job? Or did you save up the money prior? Did you take on investors? Did you run it as a side hustle?
Kind of a little bit of both, in terms of did it part-time as a side hustle, and then it transformed into more and more of a real business. I didn't take on investors, so everything is self-funded at this point. But on the flip side, I didn't take any profit out for years. It wasn't like it was paying the bills or anything. It was basically reinvesting everything right back into the business for at least the first 2.5 years, I would say. We're just now getting to a point where it's profitable enough to kind of, support me more now.
So you lived off of a very frugal lifestyle. It sounds. What kind of pain was that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not alone in that. I think I've heard a lot of stories of, significant others kind of, helping out. I mean, even like Jeff Bezos, I know, the founder of Amazon, very famously, he's talked about how his wife or his ex-wife, Mackenzie, she basically supported them, I think, for the first, almost the first 10 years or something of him starting Amazon. He wasn't taking a penny out of that business. So I think that comes into play. You got to lean on your family and friends to some extent, especially significant others. But yeah, I did have savings going into it. So, it was kind of budgeting and things like that, and just making sure that we weren't going to be on the streets necessarily if this doesn't pan out. But yeah, I think it's, there is a measure of, you have to kind of take the risk, no risk, no reward a little bit too on this. And I think that's the case with almost any business, even, if you started a franchise or something as well, you're not necessarily looking to make tremendous profit in the first couple of years. It's going to take a little while, it's not a get rich quick scheme.
I think that's kind of interesting. So, and for those listeners who might be thinking, what's the Jeff Bezos story? There is a book called The Everything Store. I think it's probably a 10-year-old book. Maybe it's older. I don't know. But it gives the story of Jeff in the early years. And obviously they built a book company, and it's become now, really has become the Everything Store, and beyond, and well beyond that. It's a way of life. It's so that he's done something. So it's a kind of, for me, it's been an inspirational book. I probably listened to it 5 or 10 times, and I'm not really an e-commerce guy, but the story of somebody who is an investment banker and saying, you know what, I'm going over here to build an online store before online was really a thing, really cool.
Right.
It's a really inspirational story. And I think there's a lot of basic life lessons that you can learn about building a business in terms of like frugality and maybe how to approach they use doors as desks at
Yeah,
the beginning and
yeah.
so on, and made a lot of mistakes. But one of his decisions, and I don't know if you've started hiring people yet, is to hire really smart people. Have you put really smart people in your life, or is this all inside Matt's head?
No, that's something that is so true. I am starting to hire more people. I actually have a great social media manager, and it was one of those things where I was doing, in the beginning, I was doing all the social media, all the outreach with influencers, and it wasn't exactly my passion, and I didn't exactly love doing it, and I wasn't the best at it either. And after hiring somebody that's what they love to do, and that is their thing. And she's just crushing it, and that was the big eye opener. It's like, wow, you really got to put, I think even Bezos has that quote: put people that are smarter than you, in positions like that will just, take your business to the next level. And that's something I'm still learning that myself. I'm not an expert in that at all. Like I'm still trying to, I guess, outsource more of the stuff I do and delegate more. Because I think that's where real growth comes in for sure. I think you need to have people that are experts doing jobs that are doing tasks that you're not the best at.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to kind of keep this almost like in a chronological progression. So you got the startup, you decided to get in the game. We kind of talked about how your state of mind, where you were at in terms of, you had structured your life up to that point in a responsible way. And a lot of people can't get out of their own way, even as employees. So you become a great employee somewhere, you set aside some money, you meet the right significant other, whether it be a spouse or, put yourself so that you have these people in your life that you can rely on in case, so you're not really on the streets ever. So
Right.
that is that's kind of a life's work, right? That's just sort of like a way of living. And that takes time. I mean, there's a compounding effect that happens in those relationships, and in that money you started setting aside when in your younger years. It's like, look, you put yourself in a position to take a little bit of risk, and that risk really is an opportunity, and it might go away. But I think the other beauty, I mean, and all that set when you make it, right? So many don't. When you make it, it's pretty fun to look back with fond memories, knowing that a lot of others have not, and that it took risk, and it was somewhat painful, I'm sure, or very painful. But thinking about the progression of these kind of things. So you start up, you've positioned yourself. Now you've decided what kind of business you're gonna be in generally. And
Mm-hmm.
now I want to talk about a little more about the product. So, because to me, this
Okay.
is, it can be the sexy part. A lot of people start businesses the opposite of the way you did it. I would say the lion's share of the people I talk to, especially when they're looking for investment, they're thinking about how they can change the world and all these why and driving things. And entrepreneurship in and of itself is great, in my opinion, because we would not have beer steins like the one I'm holding. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, we would not have this glass if it wasn't for a guy like Matt, or Matt specifically, taking the risk. Now we have a better, it's changing the world a little bit, right? It's making the drinking experience or the consumption experience a little bit better value. And I think so many times we sit here and people don't want to start businesses unless they're going to cure cancer or
Mm-hmm.
save the planet or solve these enormously huge problems. But what about just building a business that puts you in a position to change lives through hiring employees, through driving economic growth for your hometown, and you're helping people enjoy their cold beverage? To me, that's a beautiful part of entrepreneurship that we have to toast you to. But also, it takes a certain amount of creativity to find that what I'll call hero product, which I think you described. That's my word, or
Uh-huh.
word I've heard out there is like you got to get that product out there that gets a little bit of traction, then you can build a product line. So walk us through, if you don't mind, the decision to go after glassware. We talked about, but like where do you source it? What do you do? How easy is it to get them to design a product for you, and who does that design?
Yeah, wow. I thought that was really interesting what you were just saying there. I mean, it's true. Like, you don't necessarily have to change the world, like you said. You know, like I think that's so true about how I talk to a lot of people, and they're looking to maybe have some app or some software or something that's, you know, going to be very expensive. It's very competitive. You know, there's always the people looking to build the next Facebook, the next unicorn company, like that. And you don't necessarily have to do that. And what was great about this business model is I could do it by myself. You know, in the beginning, you know, I didn't need enormous amounts of capital. I could get going right away. You know, it's very fast if you want it to be. You know, you can be, you know, in launched and ready to go within 6 months or less. You know, and have proof of concept and everything once people start buying. But yeah, so to answer your question about the beginnings of it. So I had heard about the Amazon FBA opportunity. I thought that was really great. You know, not having to do all my own logistics and all that, have a warehouse, all this crazy stuff that normally you would have to have as a retailer. And I was looking at, you know, what kind of products could I sell? And I mentioned the Tea Infuser Bottle. And from there, I was looking at, okay, well, how do I get this made? And it kind of led me towards, you know, looking overseas, using sites like Alibaba to talk to company or manufacturers and factories over there that can work with small sellers. You know, that's one of the great things I think about working with these factories, specifically in China. They're willing to work with you for small MOQs, you know, minimum order quantities. I've spoken to a lot of other factories that might be domestic or maybe in Europe, and they want minimum order quantities of 50,000, 100,000 units, whereas, you know, maybe in China they'll do it for 1,000 units. You know, so it's much more economical in that sense to try out to get your invention created. And it's literally a simple Skype chat or emails to get things going, and you can go from there. And after, you know, we worked on this Tea Infuser Bottle, I was thinking, wow, well, this is kind of a cool space with glass. You know, I don't come from a glass blowing background or anything like that. I'm not an expert in glass or you know, previously. And I was like, wow, there's so many cool products in this space that need innovating, you know, like a new beer glass or a new whiskey glass, things that are just fun and unique and you can't find at Walmart or something, for example. And that's kind of how that started, you know, just kind of going down this rabbit hole, basically, of adding more and more things. And, you know, it was great because customers obviously are responding to it positively. So we're getting some good feedback and good, you know, I think that's huge too, listening to feedback. And you can almost design products based on customer needs, you know, if you do the right kind of surveying and
Well,
stuff like that.
okay, I'm going to try to put myself in your shoes. Okay, I'm going to get into the glassware, beer steins, looks like, or, you know, this glassware product. Did you go out going, how do I find something very differentiated? And then you can go to an Alibaba or, you know, start talking to manufacturers who do this. And did you say, look, I want you to design something for me that's specific? And then if you did, like, do they send you free samples? How much does it cost just to sort of do the investigative process?
Yeah, samples can be really cheap. You know, like sometimes you can, and literally you can send them almost like a napkin sketch. You know, like you can, you know, if you have something in mind. I've talked to sellers that, you know, they might work in an industry as, you know, for their day job, and they think of like, wow, I wish there was a product that I could use here, and they can sketch something out. And if you can find, you know, a factory, you know, like on Alibaba or something like that, you can send this to them like a sketch, and they'll be like, okay, you know, let's see if we can make a prototype for you. And it can be very inexpensive depending on the complexity. Like I said, anywhere between, you know, maybe $50 to $1,000 depending on the mold fees and things like that. So it can be very inexpensive, and they can have something for you and they'll ship it out to you, and you can look at it and you can hold it in your hands and really determine, you know, if you want to move forward with it. So I think that's a real advantage too. And, you know, and a lot of times these factories will specialize in something. So like the beer glass there, they have that it's a double walled glass. So it's kind of a glass within a glass. And that was something that they specialized in. And I had never heard of this type of technology before. And I was like, that's really cool. So that kind of made my mind open up and expand to all these possibilities to what we could do with double-walled glassware. And, just doing a quick search on Amazon, a couple of years ago, very little products that had, that were double-walled glass. And I was like, wow, this seems like a huge, nice opportunity here to bring new things to market that the average American has never seen before.
How do you decide? So I had a security, I still have some businesses in security, but one of the businesses that I did okay with, we bought a lot of stuff overseas. We had our own product line, and the lineup was very broad. And we had everything that you might want that would focus into a security camera system, which are, hundreds of SKUs, right? So
Right.
it can be really expensive, but I was already in the game. I was selling other people's products, and then we created our own product line. And so then went overseas and we knew what we wanted. We were sort of like, look, we went the Me Too route to a certain extent, tried to create our own little, our own differentiation, but it was more, by and large, more of a Me Too product than I think what you chose to do. But some factories, we dealt with probably 100 different factories. So in Taiwan, Korea, China, and, settling in on discovering the best factories to work with is really, it's no joke. It can be more than a full-time job. We had a team of people, including people in Asia, that really focused on that. And I guess in this particular scenario, I don't envision you traveling to China. You're getting in the game through an Alibaba and some emailing and direct messaging and that kind of thing, and maybe some credit cards, exchanging information, getting stuff shipped to you. So with that said, you can kind of get in and discover that. It sounds like for a few grand, you can kind of decide what kind of research do you do to make sure you're dealing with a factory that is going to be there, in 6 months. You don't want to start a product line and then, oh my God, now I can't figure it out.
Yeah, there can be a whole methodology to that. And there's, I think when we first started, it was, contacting 10, 20 companies and, whittling them down, right off the bat, depending on how fast they respond to you, how good their English might be, things like that. And, and then getting samples, sometimes of their existing stuff just to check quality and all that. So yeah, in a way, we got lucky finding a couple factories that are really, really good, that are our long-term partners now. And I have heard horror stories of people working with a factory that isn't really above board later on. And I think actually that probably, and that's something I want to do soon, is travel to China, I guess once, everything clears up, and actually go, and visit my factory, which I haven't done yet, which I really want to do. And I think that's still a really good way to do it. And I know there's a lot of companies that sponsor trips and stuff, so you can go and vet your own companies. But yeah, if you're just starting out with a couple $1,000s, and you're just trying to find a good factory, I think, sites like Alibaba, they do have, ratings and things like that. So you can kind of see if they're a gold supplier or something like that. So there's a little bit of credibility to that. And they also have, payment methods on there. When we first started, I was paying suppliers through Alibaba's payment system. So, it's kind of like PayPal, there's a level of security there, so I'm not just wiring money to some random person that might lose all my money. So there's some accountability there. But yeah, it is a whole science to trying to find a good factory. And there's a little bit of luck involved too. You sometimes you do get lucky and you find a good diamond in the rough. But I would say start with 10, 20 and go from there.
Okay. And thinking about that, so thinking a bit more information too that I have an awareness of. I normally don't talk about books, but there is another book out there. It's called Shoe Dog. I don't know. Have you read that, Matt?
Yes, I love that book. Yes, it's fantastic.
Yeah, So some people feel like that's their favorite book, especially if you're building a consumer brand. It's the story of Nike and a founder that took this incredible risk and, bought his stuff bought his shoes, got the shoe business. and, you know, got his stuff overseas and ended up obviously building a brand, and they've built a way of life as well at Nike. But it's an inspirational story because it didn't happen easy. I think so many times these stories end up becoming better stories because it was so freaking hard. So Shoe Dog and Knight is the guy's last name. I can't think of his first name.
Yeah.
Anyway, the founder of Nike, it's his story, and it's a story too about marketing through influencer marketing. So, you know, and I think some of these online businesses do really well. And these brands, these global brands like a Nike, they do really well through influencer marketing, which is a big part of the Nike story. But the other thing too is there is a local Asian Chamber of Commerce, and I know that they make trips over to China and so on to sort of keep the relations strong or strengthen them at whatever level. But it makes me want to ask the question about Plan B, right? There is no Plan B. We've seen those shirts, you know, with all the political uncertainty out there. What happens if it's harder to get the product, or is it already that way?
It's harder in terms of, you know, the tariffs definitely impacting our business. So that's a, you know, an economic issue. I personally don't foresee a huge issue with bringing things over. I think China and the U.S. are going to be aligned for a long time, at least, you know, for consumer goods like this. I think there could be more economic hurdles potentially. It is really tough to say. I know that is probably one of the biggest risks I would say right now with this type of business model. But you know, you think how integral Chinese products are in the U.S. economy now. It's, you know, almost every company has something made in China. I just saw yesterday Tesla is suing the trade office right now for the tariffs that on some parts of the screen in the car. So, you know, it's an interesting thing, and I think there's definitely been a trend to looking to other countries to source. I think it really highly depends on the product. I know for our products, it is pretty difficult because some of the factories we use, they have you know, these expert glass makers that have been working for 40 years. You know, they really are experts at this, and it's very difficult to find other factories that can make the same quality of glassware that we have. I don't want to say it's impossible because I think anything is possible to that extent, but yeah, it's definitely something to think about, and I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, after the elections and everything going into next year, what happens. But I didn't, you know, when I started this business, none of this was going on, so I you know, the relations with China and have, you know, definitely broken down a lot more since I started. And it's interesting to see how things are changing and how they will change coming up in the next few years here.
Yeah. So thinking about, so you start the business, you got the product, you get in the game, you got some traction. Now you're hiring social media people. When you look at this online business, I think a lot of people say, how do I grow it? I mentioned influencer marketers. Obviously you're working on building social media following. How do you, I mean, growth, is there a certain rate of growth that you aspire to? Is it just sort of, how do you decide how you're going to market the product and how fast to grow?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a calculation of, you know, your capital and cash flow. And it's a very complex calculation, I would say, in terms of what you want to do, what you aim for.
I'm going to break that down a little bit too. I'm going to stop it because I kind of asked two questions. How do you market it? And then how do you decide how fast to grow? So maybe why don't we spend just a second on how fast to grow? You use the term cash flow. There's a lot of people out there that maybe, got the general idea of what you're talking about, but you can grow so fast you run yourself out of money, right? That could happen. Or you run yourself out of product and you have unhappy customers. Did you, give us a little sense of your knowledge in that world as a practitioner, how you make some of those decisions.
Yeah, cash flow is huge. It's you know, cash is king, and in physical products, I think a lot of people, they think of, like a service or an app, there's nothing physical. So, it's just sales, 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 and there's no cost of goods necessarily. With physical products, there's lead times involved. So you might pay your supplier, and it takes them 30 days to make the goods. Then it takes another 3 weeks to another 30 days to ship it overseas to the ports. Then you have to pick it up at the port. It has to go to your warehouse. So there's, sometimes you'll be sitting on, inventory for 2 months before you can even sell it. So there's a lot
so
of.
You're counting that 2 months, the lead time to get the product. It hits
Right.
it hits Amazon fulfillment, and then you've got to figure out how fast you can turn it from there. It might sit on the shelf for another couple of months, right? Even at that point.
Yeah.
So once
Yeah,
you take,
it could.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think about the amount of time? So is it 4 months? Is there a window on a product like a beer mug that you say, look, I don't want to have more than 4 months worth of inventory, including lead time? What's that calculation look like?
Yeah, I think for new products, like to have maybe 2 to 3 months of inventory at any one time. And I think as a product becomes more successful with historical sales, you can model it more, and you actually have the data. The whole business is so data driven. You can look at, okay, like here's what I did this time last year, and that helps. The longer you're in business, the better and better your modeling can become. There's all kinds of software and things that help with that. When you first start, though, it's tricky because you have no data. So you can look at competitors to kind of gauge what how many units they're selling. There's some software out there that'll give you ballpark figures to look at competitors on Amazon to see what they're selling. And maybe you want to purchase a month or two worth of inventory in your mind, and kind of go from there. It is a complex calculation, though. It's very difficult to get right, and I think most sellers really struggle with that. And especially if you make a bad decision and you're sitting on, inventory that's been sitting there for 6 months, and that's literally just cash tied up. You're turning cash into a product, and you want to, exactly. You want to turn it over as fast as you can, as often as you can, and keep the supply line going. We've had a lot of issues with stocking out too. That's another huge thing on Amazon, because when you go out of stock, you start losing ranking on Amazon. So Amazon ranks your products by keywords and all kinds of things. So things like, you type in beer glass, we might be on the first page, but if we're out of stock for a month or two, we're going to lose that spot. And when we come back in stock, we're not there anymore, and we have to climb our way back up again. And that's where the marketing side comes in. So, there's Amazon advertising, which is probably the best, return on ad spend right now. Is, people are on Amazon to shop. So, it is a great investment that way. Versus doing maybe Google or Facebook ads or something where they're not necessarily in the shopping mood. They might see your product and they might go, that's really cool, but I don't want to buy that right now. On Amazon, people are on there to shop. So it's a pretty good investment that way. And, that would probably be the start if you were going to start a business on Amazon or e-commerce business, is, doing that type of advertising just to get awareness out.
Yeah, and you think about some of these issues, sort of the overlap, but we think about your customer typically is buying online, so you get paid within just a few days from Amazon. Once they buy it, Amazon, how fast do you get your money?
Yeah, that's interesting too, because unfortunately they were previously doing daily payouts, and I started right after they changed this this policy. So now we get paid twice a month, every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that is another hurdle with cash flow, because now you have, you're only getting paid twice a month versus daily. So a lot of times they're holding on to, your money for a lot longer, and you have to, kind of put that into the calculation of your cash flow. It's the lifeblood of your business, and it's so critical. So that makes it difficult too.
But thinking about manufacturer relations, so referring back to my, my memory of importing a lot of stuff, mm-hmm. because we had enough volume at some point, right? You start off the testing products and so on, build the relationship with the factory. Next thing you know, you're doing enough volume with a specific factory where they're wanting your business pretty bad. They become reliant because they're making a living off it, and they're willing to give you 30 days to pay, 60 days to pay. And some people that I've dealt with that are doing business in Asia say that's unheard of. But I can tell you firsthand that it does happen once you get to a certain volume level. And I sort of wonder, have you had those discussions with your suppliers whereby, look, I've got good credit, I've got a track record, you've already made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of me. You can risk some amount and give me 30 days to pay, give me 60 days to pay, or let me pay when it gets to the dock or something like that. Do those discussions take place on day one? Year three? When did those start occurring?
Yeah, it's interesting because China is so big on relationship building, and it really is a relationship. So when you first start with a factory, I wouldn't be surprised, they're going to want 100% payment upfront before they ship. From there, once they get to know you and your business and you personally, you can absolutely, start talking about different payment terms. I would say the most common right now is 30% deposit, and then 70% upon arrival in the port in the US. So you're not paying, 100% up front. You do have, that first 30 to 60 days, when it's traveling overseas to where, you don't have to pay. So that helps a lot with cash flow. I've heard some sellers have amazing terms. They don't pay until, 30 days after they receive goods at the port. It really just depends on the relationship you have with your supplier. But that's definitely discussions that you can start having, I think, as business starts becoming more consistent with your supplier. And, it is just relationship building. I think anybody would be kind of dubious if you came in right away asking for, really great terms or credit or something. You have to build that trust, and just like you have to build trust with them, like they have to build trust with you. It's, it goes both ways.
I always think about building businesses that kind of have a throttle on them where the more that I spend on marketing, the more that sales go up, and you can kind of see that that calculation, those ratios, and then it becomes kind of a decision as to how much to kind of turn on the throttle, how much to step on the gas pedal to drive that growth, so you don't run the car off the road, but you're able to maintain some inventories and not run out of money and so on, but grow as fast as you can correctly. And so thinking about that, I think you have one of those kind of businesses, which is most people dream about that type of situation. But thinking about that, it makes me think when you get to that, if you're there or not, when you get to that, then it becomes like, how fast can I grow? And then the things that might prohibit you is capital. And so you've done this bootstrapped, and which is cool. I love that. It's you own your business. It's bootstrapped. You didn't go, get a bunch of investors, but you do have you've successfully got this business that's either at that throttle level or approaching. Why not? How do you throw fuel on the fire? You can build through cash flows, but that's only going to happen so fast. Is there any desire to go like one of the companies I'm invested into? I think I told you is Trifecta Nutrition. They took on investors, did influencer marketing, and their rate of growth is skyrocketing, right? In meal delivery. How do you decide how fast? It's like, oh, look, I don't want a boss. I don't want investors. I don't. How do you decide how fast to grow if you've got that throttle business?
Yeah, I think, if you're not going to take on investors, the other opportunity would be taking out lines of credits or loans, SBA loans. We have a line of credit now, and a lot of those things are difficult to get when you're new. Obviously, I think it takes 2 or 3 years of tax returns for banks to even, consider giving you a line of credit. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because at that point too, you'll know, if you have a winner on your hands that's going to sell through and it's profitable. So you're willing to take on more risk to make those bigger purchases. The more you purchase, the more you can sell. And, you also don't want to be throwing money at marketing and then go out of stock, which, that's happened a lot. Like, I've had that issue. I have all kinds of opportunities for really cool marketing opportunities, but, we really don't have any inventory right now. We sold out. So it's, we have to pass on things that would have, been potentially exponential growth, but yeah, you can only sell as many many units that you have. So that is the challenge of the physical products business. I think versus like a digital business or an app-based business. So yeah, I would say, there's other methods of funding out there to get that you can leverage to, put into inventory to get more stock, especially when you have really good products that are selling or have proven track record.
I agree with that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and then from there, it is more of a marketing play. That's where you can really drum up, using sponsored ads or using influencer marketing and things like that to drive traffic.
And I think a lot of people think that's the sexy piece of the business, is how to drive that traffic and grow. And I guess it is. But if you don't have the lines of credit or the investors or the bank account, it's, if your balance sheet's not that strong, it's tough to really, you could have the best marketing ideas in the world and, you can't use them. And thinking about that, so if anybody's listening, I mean, I've got great relationships with a number of banks, Five Star Bank specifically. They sponsor this show, and I've helped many people get lines of credit there. But there are lines of credit that you can get that are even a little more, little less traditional than what you might get at a traditional bank. And you can borrow against assets like your receivables. You can get some against inventory. It's not as much, but there are things that can be secured besides your home, right? Besides maybe having your mom and dad or somebody else co-sign or so on. You can build it out. If you have an existing business that's driving, that's somewhat successful, lines of credit are out there for you, and I can help direct you in those areas if you're thinking, where do I start? These are things that a lot of people kind of lose track of in this world of going out and getting angel investors and venture capital. What about just going to the bank and getting a loan? It's kind of that way you don't have to give up any of your money. It's the cheapest form of financing, in my opinion, and it's the way to go if you've got a mind like yours and a business that's done what yours has done. So, but go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, there's lots. When I first started this, it was very difficult to find, funding that way, for debt funding basically. And and that's because, traditional banks and stuff, they're looking at your business like, what is this? Like, you sell on Amazon? Like, what? You don't have like a physical brick and mortar location? What? We don't get this. It's changed a lot now, and there's more and more companies now that are specific for e-commerce businesses, and you can get, exactly. Maybe your collateral is your inventory that you purchase versus, putting something more risky on the line. And that's great. There's so many opportunities now to get more funding and find lines of credit that are specific to this new wave of doing business online. And I think it's even more timely now with COVID. Now people really understand the value of e-commerce and selling things online. I mean, this is only gonna grow and grow more. I mean, I think I was just reading this an article yesterday about how I think Q2 or Q3 e-commerce sales went up like 40% over last year's same time. I mean, it's just crazy exponential growth, but it makes sense. People are at home and they're shopping online. They can't go to the mall or go to a brick and mortar store necessarily.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left. To me, this is very, very educational. So I don't know if I've given you a chance to share what you wanted to share about your business, which if I didn't, I apologize. Now's your chance. I'm gonna sort of give you the floor, if you will, to make sure you're able to sort of highlight anything about your business that you think would be helpful, especially to those business people that are thinking, I want to get into building an e-commerce business, but really share anything that you think might be insightful for our audience. So just kind of take some closing thoughts to help that next guy in line or next gal in line.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I'm coming to a point now where I think I have a little more of a knowledge on this now. So I'd love to help, if anyone has any questions. I mean, you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, Matt Rollens, Rollens with an E. And then my email is matt@dragonglassware.com. So, if you're interested in this business or you have questions, send me a message. I'll be happy to help you. I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I definitely have a lot more knowledge than I did 3 years ago. And I think it's a great time to get into it. I mean, if anything, this is, the current situation in the world is just proving how important this new economy is going to be, selling online. So I think it's a great time if you have the bug to be an entrepreneur, or if you have a great product idea. I think it's a fantastic opportunity.
Well, Matt, I want to thank you not only for sharing your story today on our show, but that offer from a guy that, owning your own business can be a handful, right? You're hiring employees, you're managing cash flow issues, you're thinking about growth, and here you are, which is what I love. You want to help that next one in line, and I know that you want to help Sacramento. You're a local guy, and I've seen that in you already with some of the other conversations that we've had, but it's so genuine. I think that can be a differentiator for Sacramento as we try to build out this entrepreneurial community and ignite an entrepreneurial revolution. It's like, if we can get the Matt Rollens in our community, these gems that are building businesses, and they can relate, they're so relatable to help one person. Rather, he threw out his contact info to the airwaves here. I mean, that is so generous. But if everybody can help one or two, we can make such a huge difference in our hometown, because entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs, they solve the world's biggest problems, and they really create an opportunity, I think, for a hometown to succeed and to thrive for years to come. So Matt, thank you, man. You are the man, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.